Yeah, okay, cool. So we'll go over your Facebook ad account. I'll just look through. Basically, what I will do is you can just share your screen. I'll request access and I'll just look through everything and just give you my impression of what I think about each part and what I might do differently.
Yeah,
Or anything else I notice.
especially because you're probably experiencing that ad fatigue like we spoke about. I just want to get your feedback on what you would do and to revamp this. So
Perfect. Okay, cool. All right. So let's see, you've got three different campaigns. One's retargeting. It looks like this is the main campaign. This one spent 9,000. First, I want to make sure that's set to all time. So let's just look at how the campaign is set up. Housing category, that's number one. So it always should be housing category.
it should or should not.
It should. It's
Okay.
required that you run it under the housing category. Yeah, because of the type of ads. So you are doing Advantage campaign budget at $65 a day.
We started, FYI, we started like at 30 bucks a day and then we worked our way up.
Okay, gotcha. Let me just see what ad sets you. So you have one ad set running. Okay, so there's basically two different types. There's two different types of ways that you can structure the campaign number. Basically, you can either adjust your budget at the campaign level, which
Hmm.
means that you give Google a certain budget to work with, and no matter how many different audiences or ad sets that you utilize, you're basically, or not, I think I said Google. I'm talking about Facebook.
Yeah,
Basically, Facebook will basically split that budget up over those different ad groups or audiences, however it chooses. So this is good if you want to test a bunch of different audiences at the same time, but usually I have this turned off. Normally we do it, we're setting the budget at the ad set level, not at the campaign level. So
that's
I'm
how you do it. You do it at the ad set level.
Yeah, so right
Okay.
now you can see here under budget, it says using campaign budget. So I can't change the budget for this ad set. If you were to test different interest-based ad sets, you can set a different budget for each. That's the way I normally have it set up and run it. Sometimes the campaign might perform better on one or the other, but after doing this for 5 years, it's just the way that I've found it works the best. But since your campaign's already been running on one ad set, at a single with one guided budget, and that's what you've been doing from the beginning, I wouldn't change anything about that now, especially because you only have one ad set you're testing, so it doesn't really make a difference.
Okay.
So, so far, campaign settings, that's fine. If we go into the actual ad set itself, let's look at how this is set up. Performance, maximize conversions. You've got a pixel on there. You're not doing dynamic creative. Okay, so let's check locations first. Just Florida. All languages. I sometimes will set this to English unless certain states like Florida, I would say Philly, I would say those two especially. I've experienced this with Facebook is that you can get a lot of Spanish speaking people submitting on the forms, which is fine if you speak Spanish, but sometimes they will be thinking that the ads are to buy a house instead of looking to sell a house, especially if you have images of houses on your actual ads themselves. So that's just one thing to be aware of. Sometimes I'll set that to English. Actually, I'll always set it to English, but I would say sometimes that's going to be more prevalent in certain targeted locations. I would say Florida is pretty big Spanish speaking population.
Yeah.
Well, as from my experience, what I've seen in Philly, we've had a lot of, I don't know if it's just Spanish speaking, but a lot of people, confused people coming through the forms in there as well. That's just what I've seen. So that's just a small detail. If you want to adjust the languages, you always could. Placements, automatic placements. I usually change this to manual. I'm not going to save any changes here, but I always do um, Facebook feed. And if you're testing Instagram, you can do some of these other ones like Instagram feed, but usually whenever I'm doing Facebook ads, we're usually not doing both Facebook and Instagram unless we're testing videos. If you are going to do Instagram, I would just leave it to Instagram feed, Facebook feed, and then Facebook Marketplace, and I would take off all of this other stuff. Now, if you're doing videos, then you want to leave anything video relevant on there. But otherwise, I get rid of everything. And I literally have seen the best results from just Facebook feed and Facebook Marketplace.
Is there a way that we could see like where all my leads have come from if they've come through any of those other ones? There's no
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah, there's a way to do that.
Okay.
But that's the first thing that I would.
Okay.
Now, you don't necessarily have to change this if it's working. This is, again, I'm just going through setup and my thought process behind the setup. Things that I'm looking for basically is um, number one, how is your targeting set up? We used to be able to set this to people only living in the location, but Facebook no longer allows that, unfortunately, like Google does.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, but you know what? I don't mind because I've actually gotten some big deals of people like people that live like their house is elsewhere or they live elsewhere and like vice versa. So I actually don't mind that.
yeah. Okay, detailed targeting.
So this is like a basically like an audience that they had manually put on there,
Yeah.
like interest and stuff.
This is very similar to what I use. I have never tested out apartment guide. Be related probably to someone who's looking to rent or possibly moving. Um, I don't know how well that performs. All these things having to do with credit or lending are fine though. For sale by owner is fine. Mortgage calculator, we've used that forever. Moving company actually is one I don't know how many agencies actually use this because I haven't been really deep into Facebook ads for a while now. We do still have clients that do Facebook, but I started using this like a couple of years ago, and at the time, I don't know that many people were using, at least not the campaigns that I was seeing were using this one. So that I'm glad that you have that one on there. That one's a good one. And this one's fine. So all the interests are fine. I actually recommend starting with an interest-based audience. You've already got one. The only one I would say is to me somewhat questionable is apartment guide, just because you don't want to attract people that may be just looking around for places to rent, especially
Okay,
on
gotcha.
Facebook, especially if your placement is on something like Facebook Marketplace. Um, so that's the only thing I see in here that I might suggest changing. Or what you could do is, again, it all depends on your quality. If you're tracking this and you notice that you're getting a lot of renters coming through, that might be something to adjust.
Okay.
But it just depends. So yeah, other than that, I think so. Let me just discard this draft, so I'm not saving those changes. So that's my thought on the ad set. It's basically you've got it set it's to stay it wide. You're not filtering too much in terms of placements, so we want to look at that. Now, I don't know if these edits were probably from. I wonder if I can just discard. No, I'm just gonna go edit. I don't think anyone was making a change to this. I think that was from what I just did with the ad set.
Yeah.
I'm just
This is
gonna
the actual ad.
Yeah, I'm just gonna discard the drafts here. That's not sitting on your account. Let's look at this one. Okay, so this is a really expensive cost per lead. But if it's working for you, then that's fine. This is going directly to your website.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know how they track that because it's going directly to our site. So how do they track when it converts on my site unless they have a pixel or something?
You would have to have a pixel set on your site for it to properly track it. Yeah. Let's look at the Yeah, you've got this pixel, sell us now cash pixel. I believe that we installed that a long time ago with you.
Yeah.
Through Facebook. I'm pretty sure it's probably accurately tracking them based on what we did before. But that would be something you'd want to double check because you're not using a lead form. A lead form will track all of your leads through there and get you usually lower cost per lead, but the quality can be not as good. So you're
Yeah.
qualifying more by sending it directly to your landing page. The cost per lead I would expect would be higher, which it is. I would just double check that you have that this tracking is set up properly. It is tracking conversions though. So you could literally just, if you know how many leads you've gotten from Facebook through that site in some way, right? Like
Yeah. I can
you just
track it on
compare the
my
numbers.
yeah. And
Mm,
overall, the quality is pretty good as it has been.
okay.
So I know that the cost is a little high, but
Yeah.
relative to PPC in Florida, it's pretty good.
So what I would look at the lead flow. And actually first I want to look at it at the ad set level. So if we go here, we go back last 30 days. Yeah, you've got nothing going on here for a while.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. If we go back farther, I don't know when you started these. I'm going to go back to June.
Probably like around May or June. Yeah,
Okay, it looks like farther back. Let's go
maybe
May
May.
1st. Yeah, okay. So there's
Yeah,
the entire length of the campaign. Um, so I will say that even with PPC, this is similar to what we saw even with PPC. Relatively, yeah, let's see, June, beginning of July, like I tell everybody, we always see a slowdown like every year across most accounts. That's like end
yeah,
of kids are getting out of school, going to 4th of July weekend, people start going on vacation. A lot of things are shifting and changing. This year, however, we also saw a slowdown in some accounts, more especially the more local accounts, towards the end of August, beginning of September. So going back into school, people coming back from vacation, what have you. Which I don't usually see that happen, at least not for as long as I've been doing this, but we noticed it across a lot of accounts this year, so I'm not surprised that this is occurring here now. But with Facebook, the difference is with Google, you might see that for a week or something, and then it starts to pick back up. We make some adjustments, we give it some time. Google's more of a weekly optimization schedule. And if the account's really struggling, we're going to look at and make optimizations depending on your ad spend every 2 to 3 days at most. Whereas with Facebook, you need to be in the account every day. Somebody does.
really. Oh wow. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't know
because
that.
if you start to go 3, 4 days with no leads, something has died and it needs to be adjusted.
Mm,
It could very likely, very possibly, this could just continue to produce nothing. It could pick back up, but my experience with Facebook is when something hits ad fatigue and dies, it basically you can't just let it keep spending money. It won't work out because it's based on the number of people that are being shown the ads. It's not based on incoming searches as Google is, right? With Google, traffic's coming through, people continue to search for we buy houses or sell my house cash or whatever, and your ads show up in front of them. Whereas with Facebook, the Facebook platform is showing the ads out to a specific audience. And over time, it'll start to show the ads to the same people again and again with diminishing returns.
I see.
So that's the difference. And you
So
can
what
tell, yeah,
I was gonna say, so what, like you recommend like revamping the audience?
possibly, yeah. So right here you can see that this ad set, like everybody, so you look at these numbers, right? This has reached 27,000, basically almost 28,000 people. Each of those 28,000 people has seen your ads almost 4 times.
Oh wow.
I usually will duplicate the ad set and try to refresh it when it gets to 2. Sometimes it can actually go up to 3 and still be stable. But normally we're refreshing things. Now, you're going to refresh it actually less often when you're targeting wider. So you have to keep that in mind because you're doing statewide Florida. So actually, that's probably why you've been able to let it run for this long, is because it's a bigger audience in general. So there's more for Facebook to work with. But you can see the number of impressions. This is how many times people have actually seen the ad. So if you take this number, divide it by your reach, that gives you your frequency. So that's how that works.
Oh,
Okay, so now for your ads, we want to look at this by placement. So you just go to breakdown and you select it by placement, and you can see how many leads came from each individual placement and what the cost was. And I just want to make sure real quick, are these videos or not? I think they're just images, right?
the way you got there is you clicked on the ad, and then on the top right you just went to placement.
So what I did, we have this ad set selected.
Then, oh, you went to ad level. Okay.
Yeah, just at the ad level, you just go to breakdown. I'll just clear it.
Click on placement.
So it looks like this. You go to breakdown, and then you
Okay.
can literally look at, if you're using dynamic creative, you can break it down by how each image, text, headline's performing. If you do it by placement, though, here, you can see how many leads you have from each. So Facebook feed is always the most popular one, 20, 26 leads from that. You've got some other ones, Facebook stories, Facebook feed, desktop. This is in-app, basically the same thing, but like Facebook stories, you've actually gotten 3 leads there that are a little bit cheaper. Those I would keep, but like something like this audience network, you could definitely probably get rid of that. It's just really high, 155. Marketplace though, you can see you didn't get a lot of leads, but they're very cheap. Instagram feed, that one's doing fine. So that's another one that I mentioned.
And all
Uh,
those other ones you would cut them, like all those column search results. Like,
yeah, like I said, you're not running videos, it looks like. And so I would, like I said, the only ones that I usually ever run is Facebook Marketplace, Facebook feed. And then if you're testing Instagram with only images, then just do Facebook or Instagram feed. And those are basically the ones that you have already performing. Instagram feed, Marketplace, Facebook feed right here, these two. I would keep Facebook stories simply because you did get some that were at a lower cost from that. And I would keep Reels because it did look like you got three, but I would cut everything else basically. Because it's just you're spending money and nothing is producing results on a lot of those. This one, I imagine it would be the same story. You could check it. This one, this ad, right? Okay, so audience network here. This one actually, maybe you do want to keep audience network because you got 6 leads at 68 for that one. This one, though, Facebook Reels was more expensive. So again, it's hit and miss, but still, like your best performers is still Facebook feed. Um, Marketplace didn't get anything on this one. It didn't spend that much either, though. And Instagram feed. The feeds are always going to be the best.
okay,
Yeah, same with this one. Okay. So, but yeah, like this ad, for example, ad number one, you got 4 leads at 62 and one at 14. And that was Facebook stories. That was mainly Facebook feed. So if you had only run this to Facebook feed, your cost per lead on that would have been 62, but you spent all this money on all these other placements that did nothing. So that's why I
I
always
see.
narrow it down from the beginning, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense.
Okay. All right. So that's placement. Let's just make sure that's cleared. Yep. Okay. I always set this to performance and clicks, which it is, so we can see the full data. So the other thing I look at is this information in here. So CPM, this is high. 88 and $91 CPM is quite high. 68 is still getting up there as high as well. Cost per link click, these are really high. Your link click through rate here is low. These are really low. These are very high. My numbers for these, I like to see this closer to $1, the cost per click all. I like to see the click-through rates closer to 3%. I like to see link click-through rates. Where am I at here?
What was it for 3%? What was it that you don't want to see
So
3%?
you've got CPC all and CTR all. CPC all is just basically if anyone clicks anywhere on your ad, the
Okay, got
cost
it.
per click anywhere. The link click through, or the link click, cost per link click is people actually clicking on the link to go to your website. So people may click on the ad to open it up or to look at the comments or whatever they're doing. So that's your CPC all. This should be much lower. This is very expensive. Same thing with your cost per link click. I like to see this down closer to dollars, something like that. The link click-through rate, this I'd like to see over 1%, closer to 2% is better. So these are a little bit low. And then your click-through rate all's a little bit low. I like to see that higher. And the CPM is expensive. So basically all of those issues can be fixed, in my opinion, usually by just using other images. Now, if the images, though, change the quality that you're getting, then it may be worth it to keep the images that you're using and just basically be where you're at with a higher cost per lead. But that's something that you have to test. It looks like in the history of this campaign, you've only got 3 ads, right? Nothing else has been tested. We are normally testing out, or at least basically my team, we have 3 people with eyes on the account at all time. One person is always basically adding new images to the actual ad set so that my junior media buyer can come in and basically make adjustments and quickly turn things on and off and continuously be testing new images in there. And then I'm looking at the account performance as a whole and directing and coming in when I need to and making adjustments based on what I see. I normally don't change the ad copy. If the ad copy is working, it's going to be the least likely thing to actually fatigue.
Interesting.
Yeah, if your ad copy is doing well, basically you just want to have a call out. Basically like homeowners in Florida or looking to sell your house, XYZ, like just something, a call out at the beginning, which yours basically you've got sell your house fast in any condition or situation. That's fine.
Would you update that just to change it up a little bit or no?
If it's working, no.
Okay.
Yeah, if the quality is fine and you're getting leads in consistently, then I would not change this. The only thing I might do is update the spacing on here. The spacing is a little weird. just so that it's visible. Because you have to keep in mind, like this is, you look at this picture here, this is what people can actually see on the ad. So, right, if I go here and I just up this twice, now all of this text is visible at the top of the ad, whereas before
Oh,
it wasn't. Because they're only going to see the picture and they're not going to see all this. So now
okay.
that preview is more visible. You're actually using up more real estate on your ad, so to speak, right? The good thing about this image is nice because it has your branding on here, but CPMs are going to be a lot higher for ads that have a lot of text. And just in case you're not familiar with what CPM is, it's basically cost per thousand impressions. And so that's basically the cost to put your ads in front of a certain number of people. That cost I've seen go up when you include a lot of text directly on the image itself, or the ad for whatever reason just isn't connecting well with the audience.
Isn't there a way that like, let's say I can get like 20 images and put them, and then Facebook will rotate them?
Yeah, that's, you can do that with dynamic.
Okay. Do you recommend
That's
that or no?
it's something you can test. We don't use it much anymore because I have a system that we basically stick to.
Okay.
But you can definitely test it out. There's basically two ways to do it. Let me discard, but I'm just gonna, just to show you this, I'm not gonna update your
Yeah.
ad, but that's what I would change there. All of this is fine. Like you're calling out who exactly you want. You've got the right language in here. You have to realize like Facebook uses the language in your ad to tell who to put your ads in front of. It's not just the interest in your interest-based audience, because a lot of those things have to do with loans and credit and moving company, whatever. Facebook uses its data and its algorithms based on the language that you use and the keywords in your actual ad copy. So this is all good. The only thing you don't have here is a call to action, basically telling them, hey, click the link below, etc. But anyways, I will discard that. Now, in terms of how do you test more images, there's two ways to do it. Number one is you literally just do what you're doing here, where you just add another, you duplicate the ad, you swap the image out and run it and see how it performs. That gives you a lot more control, right? You're basically doing it manually and you have to basically watch. And this is what we do. We do everything manually. We watch the cost per click. We watch the amount of spend that's being spent. We compare it to all the other ads, see what's performing, what's not. And we're constantly doing this every day. If you want to do dynamic, which sometimes works great and other times doesn't work at all, you can test it out. What you're basically doing is you're giving the leeway to Facebook to say, here's a bunch of images or headlines or what are descriptions or not descriptions, ad copy
Right.
that we want to test, and basically telling Facebook you can spend or basically show that ad or spend and do any combination however you want, however you think is going to get the best results. And sometimes it works way better. Other times it just falls flat. Either way, what you want to do with that is go and take the data after you've run the test and see what performed well and what didn't, and then apply that into maybe a new ad that is not dynamic.
Hmm.
The issue
Okay.
with,
So you
yeah, do you
use
have
it to
questions?
test. I was gonna say, hold on, hold on, hold on. You use it to test the dynamic. If you do use dynamic, use it to test, and you see what worked, and then you probably duplicate the ad or just do a new ad and do it with what worked, basically.
Yeah, yeah. The only
Got
thing
it.
is you have to, the problem is that you have to do this with a different ad set. So what I mean by that is basically you would have to duplicate this ad set.
Mhm.
And when you duplicate the ad set, this is your audience, you have to go in here and you have to turn dynamic creative on.
Okay. Got it.
After you turn it on, that allows you then to use dynamic creative in the ads that you're going to run. And then once you figure out, okay, based on the results from dynamic creative, then you go back into your old ad set and you can create a different ad. But there's no guarantee that just because you use what performed well in the dynamic creative ad, that it will actually also perform well in the other ad set. Sometimes the dynamic may perform well and continue performing well. And if you pull out what worked well in the dynamic and test it in a new ad, that ad may actually perform worse. Don't ask me why. Like, it's just Facebook algorithms. Like, sometimes it could be just because the audience that you're showing to is a very different subset of people. Because when you look
Got
at
it.
your, if we go here, your estimated audience size is 3 million, 3 million to 3.6 million. That's the amount of people you technically can reach. But as you can see, this ad set, this audience only reached 28,000 people. and it started to just show your ads again and again to that same slice of pie from that audience.
Why is that? It's because of
It's just
Facebook
how
takes
the
the
algorithm.
images, but it takes the images and the copy and then makes that decision.
Yeah, this is why you have to refresh things to get it to start showing to
Oh, I see.
a new quote unquote slice of that pie. Because if the algorithm gets stuck on one thing and it just keeps going. And if you're not refreshing things, then it burns out. So it actually eventually it won't continue to show to all the people in that 3 million because it thinks that this specific subgroup has the best chance of converting, which at a certain point it burns itself out. And that's why sometimes you can test dynamic creative. It may work really well in one ad set. And then when you transfer that same ad, what was working well to a new audience, it may perform just as well. It may perform better. It may perform worse. So this is why I have eliminated using dynamic creative and we just stick with one ad group because it makes everything simpler. But you can do it.
Oh, got it. Got it.
Okay. Once you test dynamic creative, again, the way that let's say that these were your dynamic creative ads, um, you go into breakdown and you scroll down here, you go by dynamic creative element, and you can literally look at, by image, and it'll give you all this information. Now, this is showing you actually multiple different images because I think you probably have the setting on that allows basically Facebook to create kind of different versions. Yeah, like basically different, it's cropped your images based on different media placements automatically. So that's what you're seeing here.
Okay, got it.
But that's how you can do that. You can set it to text, which this is basically this is your ad copy and then your different headlines you add testing. So right now I think you're actually the other thing is you can without dynamic creative test multiple headlines and multiple texts. I think you
I
can
just have
do
to
up to
duplicate
five.
that. I just have to duplicate the ad, put new pictures, and I could just use the same the same headline, the same copy, and then I could test it like manually.
Yep. Yeah, so basically right now you've got two, the alternative way to sell your house, receive multiple options to sell your home. And if we go to breakdown by dynamic creative element headline, it should just give us those two options. And you can see that like in this ad, this one's a cheaper cost, but you got two of them. This one's a little more expensive, but you got three. This one, again, like your more expensive one, you've got more leads from. This
Right.
one, you got less leads, but it's cheaper. So it's like that with all three ads. You're getting less leads from this headline, but they are cheaper. You're getting more leads from this headline, but they're more expensive. But when you test more, you can start to maybe see more patterns and stuff. But that's so without using dynamic creative, you can break this down. We didn't used to have this option, by the way. Like Facebook didn't, the only way in the past to do testing of multiple headlines or texts and all that stuff at the same time was only to do dynamic creative. They basically left dynamic creative there and added this option on. So that's why you can do it either way now. So you have multiple options.
And a question for you, a little bit out of left
Yeah.
field, but I've gotten those ads for these companies that they put, I don't know, something in your Facebook ads and you get like a separate dashboard and it's supposed to be like an auto ad management type thing. You know what I'm talking about? Like, do you have experience with any of that?
Are you talking about like where like automated to actually test out different ads and stuff for you or
Yeah,
to run the campaign? When I
yeah.
was working for another agency, what was it, 4 years ago? They tested something out like that for a couple months and it performed worse than just us manually testing things. I don't
Fair
know
enough.
exactly how it worked. I haven't really tried it. It's something
Okay.
that you could try. I don't know. It could be that those softwares work better now than they used to. The only thing is that my suspicion is that those softwares have to be updated quite frequently because Facebook with certain things also updates. Their algorithms update, the UI updates, and so I don't know all the back end stuff on how that works, but I imagine that they go out of date eventually and would stop maybe performing.
Okay.
Um,
Got it. Just curious.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. Do you have a question on any of this
I was
or?
gonna say, so in summary, what's happening here is that based on our ad copy and our images and our audience, the ads have been showing to the same 20,000 plus people over and over, which is
Yep.
why in the last 15, 20, 30 days, I haven't really gotten any much new leads because it's showing to already the same people it's touched. So in order to, the goal is to increase the impression audience, increase the size. So to do that, we have to change the images, or we have to test new images. We have to maybe update a couple little ad copy things, narrow the placements, and yeah, either duplicate the ad and do different images or do dynamic images, but just something seems like the images is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, what I would do, I think what I would do with this account probably is, first of all, you have to duplicate this ad set and get a new ad set running because this frequency is way too high. Now, just because the frequency is high doesn't necessarily mean that we have to duplicate it. It's a combination of multiple factors. So if you're seeing high frequency plus a slowdown in leads, or high frequency plus maybe this says limited learning and ads are not performing well anymore, like it needs to be some combination of factors. In your case, your leads slow down, your frequency is high, so we need to duplicate this ad set. Now, what I would do before you retest these same ads with the new ad set, I would probably switch out your images on these and
Okay.
test new images. I mean, what I run consistently is images of distressed looking houses that seem like they look local to the area that you're targeting. You have to be careful with this because you do not want to run images of houses that look brand new because that can attract buyers or renters. But you have, if you do this, you have to start to compare what is the quality running the same ad set, running everything the same. Maybe you make a couple tweaks to your ad copy spacing, or maybe you change the placements or something as well. But what you're going to be basically testing is if you change your images to try to get click-through rate higher, does that give you the same quality of lead? Because if you can get the same quality of lead with a lower click-through rate, that means you're probably going to get a lower cost per lead as well. If you don't, if your quality starts to really suffer with testing a different type of image, then you'll want to go back to this style of image if you know that it increases your
Branded.
quality. But start to test, you're going to need new variations of this, right? You've stuck with the same 3 1s for a long time, so you would need to
Yeah.
basically get someone to create new versions of these.
I wonder if I could just get AI, put that, and then tell them to like recreate images. I wonder if they'll just do that.
It could be, yeah, it's possible.
Okay.
What else? That's like the biggest thing that I noticed though is I think that your ad copy is fine because again, ad copy rarely fatigues. I've been using the same ad copies that we know work and get results for a long time. Same thing with headlines. It's usually the image because that is the most prominent thing that people see on a Facebook newsfeed. And if they just see the same image over and over again and they haven't become a lead after a while, then it's likely that they never will. And so changing up the images sometimes can get things back on track. We're, like I said, we're always testing images. That's the main thing that we're working on when I'm optimizing an account.
Interesting. So you wouldn't duplicate the campaign, you would just duplicate the ad set level.
Yeah, I would stay with you. Whenever you're running Facebook ads, you always want to keep things within one campaign as much as possible. You rarely ever want to change, unless you're changing the campaign objective. There's no reason to do a different campaign because the campaign already has all this data within it, right? And you think of your an account as like a data collecting machine, right? You've got the account has data on everything of the lifetime of the account, so this is why you don't want to mix and match different industries. Like you don't want to run ads for 2 or 3 different businesses within one ad account. Number one, I don't think you're supposed to do that by Facebook's policies. But number two is that you're collecting data on the same industry within one ad account. And then for each campaign objective, let's say you're doing a campaign only for Instagram or only for Facebook, or you're doing a lead form campaign versus a conversion campaign. These are all different types of campaign. You want to have, those are all collecting data within themselves, right? Same thing with
Got it.
ad sets. This ad set within the campaign is collecting its own data based on this specific audience it's reaching. So if you duplicate
And
this, it's going to be a different subset of people that you're working on.
and if I were to duplicate it, would you leave this one on?
No, no,
Okay.
no,
Duplicate
no,
it,
no.
turn this one off, let the new
Yeah,
one run.
what you want to do, you want to go here and you just want to, you always pause things at the ad level. Uh,
Uh,
Never turn it off at the campaign level unless you're completely never going to use that campaign again, then it's fine. And never turn things off at the ad set level either, because If you do want to go back to using this ad set, if you have already turned it off and it's been longer like than a week or something and you turn it back on, it can reset some of whatever momentum it had. It it puts it back into a little bit of a learning phase.
Interesting. It's good
Yeah,
to know.
so now I wouldn't really recommend coming back to this ad set to retest the same exact ads. If anything, you can utilize the same ad set and test out new images. Honestly, that might be the first step is before you duplicate this, you get some new images, you duplicate these ads, and you run it with the new images. And if that gets things back on track and you're producing lead flow and it's fine, then you can continue to basically just continue to use the same ad set. If those ads that you're testing still don't produce anything despite being new images, like, and it's still slow, then it's an ad set problem for sure. And then yes, you need to duplicate the ad set and you're probably not going to use it again, but I would still only pause everything by turning off things at the ad level. Does that make
And
sense?
here, if yeah, if I were to take your advice and do that, so I would duplicate these and turn these three off and put, let's say, three new ones with three new images. I would turn these three off and put those new three ones on. Essentially, is like what you said, right?
We need to make sure, are these, I want to double check if these are all look like the same exact headlines and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. These might be duplicated already.
Okay, so these are, so basically, yeah, these, all of these ads, they're all the same except the image is different. That's the only difference with these
Okay.
ads.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically you could take ad one and duplicate it, three
Three
times
times.
and just switch out for three new images, turn these off, let the other new ones run. And if it performs a lot better, right? If you see these click-through rates and cost per clicks, click-through rates going up, cost per click lower, CPM lower, that would tell you that the images are performing better. However, if they're just not producing leads, then it's an ad set issue. The other thing is you're spending 60 something a day, so you need to I would give it a few days to let each one see if it produces a lead. Because your cost per lead is around 100 a lead. So you've got to let it run a little bit past $100 in spend for each ad to even test it out, just because your cost per lead is so high.
I see. I see. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Makes sense. So
Yeah.
basically, we have a impression issue, and the only way to solve that is the main way to solve that is images, which sounds because we're not doing videos or anything. So swapping out some images, maybe testing some unbranded ones with some kind of beat down houses, maybe some branded stuff, and just like test. You wouldn't recommend dynamic ads because of all the reasons you said. So probably better to put like just three new ads, just watch it every couple days, ideally every day, but every couple days and just switch it out and see. So let's say the campaign starts doing good. What how would I know that it's doing good? Obviously the lead flow, but like numerically on this, what would I look out for?
So if you were to take and did what we just recommended, let's say that you test out some new images here in the same ad set. I would be looking at, first of all, the number one most important indicator is your cost per lead. But let's say
Got
it's
it.
just spending and you haven't gotten any leads yet and you just want to look at it. I would be looking mainly at the CPM initially, right? If you're getting low CPMs, that's a good sign. If the CPMs are about the same, then that might just mean that they're going to perform the same. I'd be looking at these numbers here. Like I said before, CPCs, I like to see them $1 to two per click. Usually
Got it.
at most, like it's ideal if they're under $1. Click-through rates closer to 2% or 3% click-through rate for all. Link cost per link click, this is very expensive. I like to see this around $2 or less, and the link click-through rate around 2.5, 2%, something like that.
Okay.
So those are the numbers you can look at initially before it starts really spending. Once it starts spending, you're going to be comparing, like, is there a big difference between the three ads that you tested? The other thing to keep in mind is when you do test images, like I said, for creatives, there's basically three ways to do it. There's videos, which is an entirely different setup with your ad set. So you're doing images. Like I rarely see videos perform better than images on Facebook. So we always stick to images. So within images, there's basically like like, if over all the years I've looked at all the different things people test on Facebook, it boils down to images of houses, images like you have where it's mostly branded or some sort of combination thereof. And that's just what works. So what I would be looking at is, okay, is it starting to spend money? If it is spending, because some of your ads may not spend as much as others, right? Facebook is going to spend the money on the ad that it thinks is going to perform the best. So I'd look at which ones are spending, and I'd look at what are the costs here. Once it starts to get leads, what's the cost per lead? If it's not getting leads, what's your KPI? Your KPI is probably about $100 a lead, because that's what historically it's done. So if you're getting in, if it's spending $100 or more, let's say it spent 120 bucks and you've gotten no lead, I would probably consider turning it off. Technically,
And
you could
then
run it up to 200. Like technically, you could say, okay, we're going to let it spend up to double our KPI target, which would be $200. But with Facebook, you want to be a little quicker than that, just because it's easier to test stuff out. It's easier to test a lot of things out faster, especially if you're spending 65 bucks a day or whatever that was.
yeah,
Um,
60, 65.
so I'd probably let it run up to 120, 130 at most. And if it hasn't produced anything, just turn it off and try something else.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Like this ad,
All right.
the frequency is actually lower here. These are a lot higher. So these ones have shown a lot more. But if we go last 30 days, look at the data, this has done nothing. This is 117. This one actually has done better the last 30 days than the other one. So that's the other thing, is you have to look at maybe the last 2 weeks. Is there one ad that's eating up all the budget? Like this one obviously is eating up a ton of budget. It spent 455 bucks. The last 2 weeks got nothing. This one's actually getting leads at a lower cost. So that's the other thing, is we didn't actually talk about this yet, but time frame. Yeah, but last 7 days, that ad that was doing well has now, these are doing nothing, and now this one's eating up the budget. So they're all basically burning out, is what I'm seeing.
I see.
But when I'm looking at the time frame for any ads, we really only use like maximum to see the entirety of the campaign for Facebook, and I look at the last 7 days. I rarely ever touch last 30 days, whereas with like Google, we're mainly checking last 30 days because it requires more data to make decisions. Whereas Facebook, we're really sticking just to like maximum time frame and last 7.
Okay. Got it.
So yeah, these are all. This one has spent 214 bucks and just it's produced nothing on the last week. This one's just
Yeah.
not spending that much. Um,
And is three like the magic number? Be testing three different ads,
no,
or
not necessarily. It depends on your budget. So for example, with somebody with only a $30 per day budget, they're probably only going to be testing like 2 ads a day, or not a day, but 2 ads at a time. Whereas if you're spending 50, 60 bucks a day like you are, then you can afford to test out, 3, maybe 4 ads at a time. My general rule is if your click-through rates and your cost per click is low enough, you could go by $10 in ad spend per day per ad. But I bump that up a little bit more because I want more budget to go to each ad to get the testing done a little faster. But I'd say like that's the bare minimum. So for example, if you're spending $30 a day, you could test 3 ads at a time. But I would recommend $15, probably have $15 worth of spend per ad that you're testing out at a time. So that's why I would stick. If it's 30 bucks a day, then you're testing out only 2 ads at a time. You're giving enough budget to Facebook in order to efficiently put the money towards the ads where it needs to, and to see if it's going to do well or not.
okay, fair enough. I understand. All right, okay. So sounds good. I took a bunch of notes, and I guess obviously we'll have this thing recorded so I can refer back to it. But
Yep.
yeah, yeah, interesting, interesting. Yeah, like I said, it was working pretty well, and then obviously, as you can see by the numbers, the last couple of weeks it's been like nothing. So I knew something was up, but now I can clearly see what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can always test other stuff too. You could test different headlines, you can test different ad copy. It's just I think, and I always see that the image has the biggest impact. The last thing I'll probably say is, when you do test images, and you're already doing this, just make sure that there is green in your image. You've got
Mm,
green. Now, this is probably because this is what your branding looks like, but she's wearing green here. Green colors always perform better on Facebook, period. with images. This is something that I've seen consistently. If you're going to test houses, images like images of distressed houses, make sure they've got a bright green overgrown lawn or something. I wouldn't recommend like green, ugly green paint. For some reason, ugly colored houses, even if they're distressed, ugly colored houses never perform well. But if there's lots of green trees in the background or the lawn is overgrown, you like lots of green grass, like those images always perform better than really brown, gray, darker images, stuff like that. So that's just something I've noticed as well.
Oh, mentorship. Right, love it. Oh yeah, awesome, awesome. Yeah, so I got a little bit of work to do, but yeah, I'll definitely start making some of these changes today, tomorrow, and I'll update you like in a month or so just to share with you some of the results. But yeah, I'm hoping I can get these back on track.